Well, howdy ho there, folks. How are we doing today? Today, I wanted to share a couple of things with you that should increase your love of the Lord and increase your peace. This is from the Imitation of Christ, and I always find these lines very interesting. These lines are here, the voice of Christ sharing it to the disciple. And I shall share them with you. My child, I will teach you now the way of peace and true liberty. Seek, child, to do the will of others rather than your own. Always choose to have less rather than more. Look always for the last place and seek to be beneath all others. Always wish and pray that the will of God be fully carried out in you. Behold, such will enter into the realm of peace and rest. And I think that these are really, really useful. And while I talk about them a little bit, I'm going to play a little bit of Risk of Rain because I like playing games while talking about things. I babble a lot, as you may or may not know. And we're just going to do Commando. I downloaded a few lady skins for Commando because I just thought it would be neat to be a lady Commando. You know? I think I like this one a little bit more. And we're just going to do it on medium or... this isn't drizzle. That's some kind of rain. Wait, it should tell me somewhere. I don't know. Anyway, it's like the medium difficulty. But yes, these are very interesting commandments because what you're going to notice is that a lot of this is about placing your desires and your will into serving rather than into doing things just for your own means. What you're really trying to do is realize that in serving others and in serving specifically the will of God, there's a great deal of peace to be had. You see, if you look at like all the wealthy people in the world and things like that, what you're going to realize real quick is that it doesn't make them happy. You're also going to realize that people will do anything to hold on to that wealth and that power desperately. Often things that would make them feel uncomfortable, unhappy, and things like that. I just want you to like look at Elon Musk and look at the way his life is and assume that he's doing great. He's really not. But by going through and seeing that these things do not bring happiness, it kind of brings into question the whole idea about like, well, I want material acquisition and things like that. And yes, material acquisition can bring a certain amount of peace if you're, you know, like if you're not homeless and things like that and you really value having certain comforts and things like that, it can really be beneficial to you. And I'm definitely not saying that everybody has to be homeless. You know, there's reasons that, you know, monk communities didn't encourage like literally everyone to become a monk, because with monk communities, for those who are so inclined to such things, they can't really support themselves without other people working and, you know, being generous. And the monk communities provide good karma and love and nice things like that, and teachings for those who are not able to dedicate their entire lives to, you know, being spiritual. So that's a really good thing. But the first one here, seek, child, to do the will of others rather than your own. When you're going out into the world, when you're trying to do things, what you should really be trying to do is make sure that you're doing things that will help others, that will benefit others, that will improve others. And in this case, we can say that maybe the will of others could specifically be God, but it could also be the people around you. Make sure that other people are doing well, and try to bring goodness into their lives. It's not just about what goodness comes to you, but you know, you can be somewhat concerned for yourself, but if you follow these rules and if you really want peace in your life, this is one of the best ways to get that peace. By giving yourself up for others, and this doesn't necessarily mean entirely giving yourself up. This doesn't mean that you have to give up like certain things. For instance, you should always have certain principles that you live by, and by having certain principles that you live by, you're going to be able to kind of understand where these other things come into place. You see, all spiritual development begins with moral development in some sense. If you really want to follow a spiritual path, you have to begin following a moral path. You have to follow a path which will get you to do things that are good for others and good for yourself, rather than things that are bad for you. This can be as simple as not drinking too much if you still drink at all, or not engaging in licentious behavior, not engaging in behavior that makes other people uncomfortable and things like that. It can mean a lot of little different things. But in this case, when you think about doing the will of others rather than yourself, we can bring, for instance, an example up. So let's say that someone, you really like someone, but they don't necessarily like you back. One example of doing the will of others rather than yourself is, rather than bothering them and keep coming back to them and being like, oh, come on, give me a chance. Oh, come on, give me a chance. If they don't like you and they're rejecting you in this instance, it's a good thing to give up your will and allow them to have their will. Do the will of others. Leave them alone. Don't be a bother. By servicing people in this manner, you're going to be able to gain a better understanding of servitude and a better understanding of how clinging on to things that will not bring you happiness is not the way to achieve peace. That's one example. Another example is, sometimes you need to listen to others around you when they have advice. Sometimes people's advice is good. Now, sometimes it's bad. But you should think about it. If someone wants you to do something to help them, if someone's like, hey, could you take out the trash, and just do it as a favor to them, doing little favors like that is ultimately good for you. Doing little things all the time can help you achieve better goals and purify the mind. By engaging in acts of selfless service, you're going to purify your mind. This is actually the path of karma yoga in this one sentence here, which is very interesting. Engaging in selfless service and not doing it for, getting good karma or getting brownie points or anything like that, but doing it to wholeheartedly serve those around you and to bring them up can be really very good. It can really beef out your spiritual resume, if you will, and get you further along the path. So that's really important and good to have. You also have things like the second thing, which is, I skipped ahead. Always choose to have less rather than more. There is a harsh reality, which is that material benefits do not necessarily bring peace and happiness. Yes, certain material benefits can be good, and if you're in a bad situation, sometimes it's good to change the situation around yourself. If you can, get a better job, for instance, or make it so that you benefit in ways of going to a better school. Sometimes that can be a little bit of a benefit. But the main thing is, do not simply strive to consume. See, if you just keep picking things up and grabbing them and grabbing them and grabbing them and grabbing them, that doesn't actually provide you any real peace. That doesn't provide you any serenity of mind or any serenity of purpose. Sometimes you have to be willing to give up material benefits and material pleasures around you so that you can... Did that make me jump up at all extra? I don't think it did. Wait, I'm gonna try. Nope, it didn't. Okay, I was trying to see if there was an easier way to get up over onto that thing there, but I don't really think there is. Oh wait, I can try this. No, it bounces way too much. And sometimes you have to be willing to give things up around you. Simply purchasing more, going to a store and, buying stuff can give you pleasure in the short term, but that's not going to give you pleasure and peace in the long term. In the long term, one of the things that will bring you more pleasure and peace is realizing that you don't need so much, that you don't need to constantly be after things in your life to be... Ooh, this might be a bit difficult. I did select the challenge thing 5 times. You don't have to be constantly seeking to have more things rather than less things. Oh. Okay, so maybe 5's a bit much. You don't have to constantly be seeking these things out, and sometimes it's actually really good to lessen the things in your life and allow yourself to get a bit of a break. Now, I'm gonna play this one because it's kind of funny. Sometimes you need to have the ability to give up on those things because by giving up on those things, you'll find that there's less attachment, and by having less attachment, there can be more peace. By not having like all this junk in your life, it can also lead you to be able to do a lot of other things, even if you're just speaking from a material perspective. By not constantly buying things and not constantly seeking to have the latest thing, the latest gadget, or whatever, you can make it so that you have more time and money to spend on things that actually matter. That you can get further along in your life in a wide variety of ways. Simply spending to spend is not really a great thing. And knowing that riches and wealth does not provide happiness is actually a great way to make sure that you're not like super tempted by those things, and that you can have your moments of peace and revelry rather than these moments of attempting to find grandeur in larger and larger things. Know what I mean, Jimmy Dean? This can also go into the next one, which is look always for the last place and seek to be beneath all others. This means that you're not trying to like push people out of the way and things like that. See, the quest for power is willing to dominate you in every single fashion. It's willing to change who you are, change what you look for, change who you aspire to be in all these things. Oops, I think it just goes to which way I'm facing. It will also make it so that you, even if you want to do good, you will sometimes have to sacrifice good to get in first place. Sometimes you'll have to be a bit of a butt munch. Sometimes you'll have to do things that are not necessarily good. Competition is not necessarily always the worst thing ever, especially if it's not taken too far, but you might be willing to sacrifice your body. You might be willing to sacrifice your mind and all sorts of other things. Sacrifice your relationships. That's not when competition is good or even a decent thing. You should seek to be last. Not in the sense of like deliberately losing or anything like that, but in the sense that understanding that you should always be looking out for others. Always try to benefit those around you and try to raise up your community as a whole rather than strive to be, you know, the biggest, bestest one forever. Sometimes you have to be willing to benefit those around you so that they can have the real peace and serenity they need, so that it can also help your peace and serenity, and so that they can also have their own way to God. You need to be willing to give up on certain things. Don't constantly strive to be first. Don't strive to always have the best things. And you know, for instance, wealth is a tool. It can be used for good or bad. It can be used for good or ill. It can be used to bring benefit to those around you and to bring benefit to yourself, or it can be used as the way a lot of rich people do, which is they hoard their wealth and, you know, keep it to themselves and don't help those around them with it. You don't want to be like that. You want to represent a much better, grander thing. You should wish to try and grow your community and grow those around you, and also be willing to give up some of that wealth and some of that power. The quest for power will take a lot out of you. Believe you me, power is willing to ask you to give up everything for the sake of it. It's one of the reasons that you need to be careful about trying to acquire power and trying to understand where power comes from and things like that. Ultimately, also, understand that the real power lies with God. Now, of course, that's a personal opinion, and that's not necessarily one that applies to everybody, even those who are not, like, on the godly type paths. But I still think it's something I like to state. God is, of course, where the ultimate power comes from, and where we should really aspire to be. If you want peace and serenity, you should seek God, not seek, you know, temporal power in the mortal planes. Know what I mean? And this last one here is also really good, which is always wish and pray that the will of God be fully carried out in you. This is also about surrendering. This is about surrendering up your actions, surrendering up your ideals and things like that, and surrendering them to a higher power. Follow the dictates of a higher power, and surely you will be set free. I think that's from AA. I think I just did that from AA. But I've never been to AA. I think I've actually... No, I heard that from the Venture Brothers. Yeah, the Venture Brothers. I don't know if it's actually a direct quote, or I don't know if it's the right quote, because it's in the cartoon show, but hey. Still good. So sometimes you have to be willing to give up on those things and be willing to pray that you will be an instrument of God's will, that you will be an instrument of that love and that divinity that watches over all. Ultimately, by giving these things up, you will find and maintain peace. You'll find and maintain love, and that's what's truly important. What you really want is the ability to give up these idle concerns and place your faith in a higher power. Make it so that you ultimately serve the will of God and that you serve the will of your Creator, not just so that you may be a servant because God wants servants, but because ultimately giving these things up is what leads to peace. This is what leads to happiness. The happiest people in the world, supposedly, are those Tibetan monks up there. And if you think about it, what have they done? They've given up tons of stuff. Understanding that material possessions and power are not the root of happiness is really an important thing in all of our lives. So I really advise everybody to keep up these few things to try and maintain happiness, to try and maintain peace, and to try and live a better life. Live a life that's worth living. Live a life that is full of joy and bliss. Live a life that is in service to others. And live a life that lets you connect to God and feel that will of God in your everyday actions. That's the stuff that's truly important. Sometimes you have to be willing to give things up to gain something more. Not what I mean, Jimmy Dean? Okay, that's just what I wanted to share. Ooh, that's very bright. And she's like a ghost, so she like blends in. Wait, let's just do... There we go. Know what I mean, Jimmy Dean? Sometimes you have to be willing to blend these things in and go for it. And be willing to give yourself up to a higher power. So remember, it's seek, child, to do the will of others rather than your own. Always choose to have less rather than more. Look always for the last place and seek to be beneath all others. Always wish and pray that that the will of God will be fully carried out in you. Behold, such will enter into the realm of peace and rest. Okie dokie, artichoke? Okie dokie. I hope that you all have an absolutely wonderful day, and I hope that this helps you out wherever you are. And I hope you know that I love you, and God loves you, and bye-bye, I love you, bye. Have a great one, bye.